Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit, and let's have a gander at Lawbreakers. This is footage from PAX East 2016. This is unfortunately B-reel recorded by the devs rather than my own stuff, but I did get to play it at the event itself. So this gameplay is probably better than the stuff that I could have put out, so you get to see people play this slightly more competently than I could. And Lawbreakers is a forthcoming shooter from Cliff Bleszinski's new company, Boss Key. And it has some fairly distinctive elements to it, not least of which the gravity anomalies, which mean that quite a lot of the combat, as you can see, is done mid-air. The classes themselves are running down the hero shooter kind of line, which is obviously becoming quite common. That seems to be one of the trends of this year, that we have shooters whereby you pick from various character classes that have various cooldown-based abilities, and you could distinguish that from, say, Team Fortress 2, in which the characters technically don't have abilities per se, they're all items and weapons, but in some cases, like, say, with the Jarate, they're basically cooldown-based abilities anyway, because they do have a cooldown on them, so it's quite similar in that respect, but games like Overwatch are certainly doing that, games like Paladins are doing that, and this is a genre that TF2, or indeed the original Team Fortress, perhaps started, but is starting to come into its own with this idea of cooldown-based abilities, which is in many cases borrowed from Dota and League of Legends. The character we're playing here is a melee-focused character. She's a very fast character, as you can see. She's got a lot of mobility. She has a kind of pulse rifle as well as dual daggers. Now, as you noticed in the footage earlier, it was possible to actually combo the grappling hook ability that she has with the daggers in order to pull somebody out of the air, pull yourself to somebody, or indeed swing from the outside of the level, which is a damn cool little function. She also has a berserk ability there, which allows her to do a lot of damage and allows her to see through walls so she can slice and dice. One of the first things that I noticed about this is that, and I'm sorry about the kind of sudden jump cuts in this footage, I've done my best to edit it, but it's several short pieces of footage of the various classes. But you may get the impression that the melee, and indeed all the weapons, have a good amount of punch and weight to them. Melee is something that's not done right in all FPS. It doesn't feel as brutal as it should, but I think a combination of good animation and some really nice loud sound assets does certainly help, and I enjoyed playing the melee-focused class in particular during my time at PAX, although my favorite had to be this one right here. It was a slower-moving character with higher HP called Kronos. He has a rocket launcher, which is in itself a wonderful thing. Always nice to get a rocket launcher. It feels really good too, and this is his ultimate power, which is what I like to affectionately call the Sith Lord power overwhelming kind of thing. It's like, are you an Archon? Are you a Sith Lord? I don't care, one way or the other. You get to zap people with lightning, which is in itself a fairly cool little feature. One thing that's also worth noting that distinguishes itself from other shooters in this emergent hero shooter genre is that all the characters have at least 2 weapons. This is not true in games like Overwatch. Not every character has 2 weapons. In fact, most only have 1. That gives you a good amount of variety, and all of the weapons also have some sort of alt-fire functionality. So it gives you that Unreal Tournament vibe, and it also at least gives you a little bit of choice as to how you engage with the combat. I do unfortunately find these games, particularly the hero shooters that do only give you 1 weapon, to be a little bit dull. This is especially true when they don't have an alt-fire. Some games certainly do. You know, Overwatch has some weapons that have alt-fire modes, and that's great and all, but it would be nice to have another weapon. I suppose that a lot of these games are prioritizing creating a kit that very much suits the character and defines that character, but I don't necessarily think you have to limit the weapons to just 1 in order to do that. I felt that the characters in this game certainly had a good amount of definition to them. You know, this guy's very clearly the lightning guy. He has a Tesla cannon as well as a rocket launcher. You might think the rocket launcher is a little bit out of place. Maybe, but it's also a rocket launcher, and I like having one of those. Speaking of rocket launchers, this guy has a shoulder-mounted one. His standard weapon is, you know, about as standard, bog standard as it gets, outside of the fact that it's energy powered. It's basically an assault rifle with aimed at sights, but he has a cooldown-based rocket launcher on his shoulder, and what I liked about it as well is that that ability is actually represented in the HUD itself. When the rocket is reloaded, an extra HUD element will reappear. It will actually show a weapon model, a view model of that rocket launcher. Now, I have to say the view models, as usual, this is one of my little bugbears with recent shooters, that some of the view models are a little bit big, although it's not completely unreasonable. It depends on the weapon. You know, obviously the minigun is quite large, but things like the pistol are not insanely huge, so I give them credit for that, although it is also nice that you can push the field of view up quite high in this particular game. But the real defining feature of this it has got to be the anti-gravity. So you can create gravity anomalies, and there are also areas of the map which have broken gravity. You pass through these force fields, and you'll suddenly realize that you're actually in an area that lets you jump up really high and engage in the sky. Really cool idea, actually, combined with the fact that almost every class, in fact, believe every class has some sort of movement-based ability, which vary from the grappling hook, which allows you to swing around the outside of the level, which is super cool. The rocket booster, which actually has, again, a great effect to it. It really feels like you're flying with breakneck speed and abandon through the level, which I do dig a great deal. And some of the more basic stuff, like the giant leap that Kronos has as well. Overall, there's a great little selection of skills available here. The game mode that we were playing was a capture the battery mode, which is a fairly basic one. You've got to capture the battery, put it in your power node, and then you're able to charge it. Once you've charged it up to 100%, you win the level. So it's a bit of a combination of capture the flag and defend the point. Works pretty well. And overall, as unfortunately this footage is rather short, and I have to come to my conclusion fairly rapidly, I've got to say that this is a premium feel FPS that has enough arena shooter mixed with hero shooter to go around. It has a reasonable time to kill, you know, a lot shorter than something like Battleborn. It's around the same as Overwatch, but it also gave me that Unreal Tournament vibe. I think it helped that the weapons seemed to be very varied and well designed. They had a lot of punch to them. The weapon was clearly skill-based. You know, there's nothing with any crazy auto-lock or auto-aim or anything like that. And there are definitely some weapons that were also in Unreal Tournament as well. Things like the rocket launcher and everything like that. So Cliffy B has put his stamp on it. Let's just put it that way. And it being an Unreal 4 engine game makes me think, yeah, you know what? This game feels a little bit familiar in a great way, but it also looks like a very strong addition to this emergent hero shooter genre because it has that premium feel. It looks really, really good. It's a little bit edgier, a little bit more adult, I guess, than Overwatch, which for some people is not going to be a good thing, but I personally did like the variety of characters and the banter that was going on between them, and just the general brutality of the combat and the weapons. You know, no weak weapons here. You were just ripping people apart with powerful artillery. The battle for the hero shooter genre has begun, there's no doubt about that, and there are several games which are looking to vie for control of it. Lawbreakers is a premium title. It will not be free to play, which in itself does have advantages, because hopefully that means it will not suffer from various problems with its business model, but I think in terms of both look and feel, it's a pretty damn strong one, and it innovates just enough to be interesting. Little short video on Lawbreakers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.